Hello, welcome to KPFK's Local Station Board Debate number 2. I am joined by Tyan Schesser, Alan Beek, and Ken Aaron, and they each have 1 minute to present themselves, starting with Tyan.
I work in professional development. I give trainings to staff that work in after-school programs and out-of-school time programs. Prior to that, I worked in affordable housing, where I created an after-school homework assistance program and launched the program and trained staff and worked there for 5 years. So that was the beginning of me being involved in social justice issues and starting to learn about disparities and access and just kind of waking up my senses to getting engaged with the community. Since then, I've been organizing. I've served on the Echo Park Neighborhood Council, and I organize with groups like the Sunrise Movement and Converging Storms Action Network. We work on environmental issues, climate change issues, the Green New Deal. I organize with the Green Party. So that's kind of what I do with most of my time. Oh, I also work on homelessness issues. So that's kind of a little background on me.
Thank you. Ken Aaron?
Hi. You want like a little biography?
1 minute, yes, please.
1 minute. Well, there I am, trying to be interesting. As I understand it, you've clicked to watch this, so try to give you some entertainment. You know, I'm just a normal guy. I had a background. I'm a Californian, so I've done most everything Californians have done. I've worked in IT. I've done some show business. I've sold cars. I have sales, real estate license. And I belong to at least one cult. And I've worked in 5 or 6 different nonprofit progressive groups. So just a Californian. And I've been on the station on the board for quite a while. A cumulative amount of at least 6 years on the local board and about 2.5 years on the national board. And I tried to bring to the board the attitude of professionalism and standard business practices, not pushing any particular political agenda. That's what I'm there. I'm just there to keep the show on the road, keep the car moving.
Thank you. Alan Beek, you have 1 minute.
Alan Beek, retired computer designer. I think Pacifica is a community asset like a library or schools or parks. I want to defend it. I'm furious at the attempts that have been made to subvert the management of Pacifica and convert some of those very valuable radio licenses to private property of the people who are doing the subverting. The last effort has been overcome, fortunately, and during the last 2 years. I ran for the local station board 2 years ago, wasn't elected, but I worked on the finance committee during those 2 years, have taken the notes and recorded its activities. We're nearly out of the destroy work of those subverters, and I hope to be able to get Pacifica through the bankruptcy danger and back in the action.
Thank you. So just to go through the format, basically I'm going to give you each a main question. You'll get 2 rounds. You'll start, and this question has been randomly selected from a master list of questions, and I generated the sequences ahead of time. And you'll get 1 minute to start, and then each of you will have 1 minute to follow up. I'll indicate with like this when you have 10 seconds left, and you'll get another minute to close in response to their answers. So to begin, we are starting with question number 9, and this goes to Tyan Schesser. How do you suggest that KPFK evaluate programs and make decisions to change, add, remove programs? Do you think that this process can be improved, and in what way? Who should decide which programs be taken off or put on the air? You have 1 minute.
Okay, well, I'm new to this organization in terms of the board, running for board, and I've been trying to do my homework and read about the local station board, the Pacifica National Board, learn about the different councils and committees. And I've seen that in the past, KPFK, this organization as a whole, has established different advisory committees and boards to investigate and evaluate and report back. And I've heard that they've been effective. So I think later another question, potentially we'll talk about the CAB, which is the Community Action Board, Community Advisory Board. And there's another group that I've learned about called the Program Council, which that would be their primary responsibility, would be to do a really deep dive on the programming, how it's working, why it's working, what suggestions they would make. And that's something that I think is a strength of the organization, although it can be problematic, is that there's a lot of different boards and communities giving input to the process. And I think that's more just and more fair. So it just sounds like it doesn't always work out that well. So we obviously need to take a look at that, do it again, do it better, and have it be effective.
Thank you. Ken, Aaron?
Okay, we're talking about programming. Okay. Well, basically we have what we call public issues or public forum, political shows, music, spirituality, self-improvement, and one comedy show and a car show, a couple of oddball shows. We have to improve our outreach in terms of having more social programs or more public programs about different communities in Los Angeles. We are not addressing the Asian community in the greater Los Angeles area. We have to have a show covering that population and their issues. It's a vast population. It's larger than African Americans. And, and we're currently handling African American issues and Latino issues. We're not handling anything with Asian issues or Armenian issues or Russian issues, and we have these subsets in our society. So we have to broaden, we have to be more diverse, and not just into the traditional, everybody knows what has to be addressed. We have to increase our topics.
Thank you. Alan Beek?
Well, of course, the most exciting prospect before us is we have to raise money. You can't do anything if you go broke. Now, fortunately, I believe that the money input depends on the quality of our programs, of the quality of the stuff we're putting on the air. And my motto is listen to the listeners. I think we will find out from our listeners, if we pay attention to them, what is wrong, what is right, and what we should be doing instead of what we are doing. So my chief effort is going to be to try to get us going with a sort of a blog, a polite blog where we don't insult each other, but we make suggestions. We talk to the program hosts, and hopefully they will talk to us, and we will decide what is the best thing for Pacifica to do, for KPFK to do in the future. If we do that, I think we will find that we are getting better results, that our listeners will be more generous in responding to the fund drives, and the well-heeled people who like a good liberal station will give us more money. I don't like to be regarded as just a liberal station. I think we should be balanced and try to present all the facts, all the important issues. I hope that we can get some really informative debates going in which people aren't trying to kill each other, but are trying to inform the public. I think we can do a good educational function that way, and that would be one of the things I would like to see if I get on the board.
Thank you. Tyan?
Well, I just want to say that some good ideas were presented by Ken and Alan. And I think the question is how? How do we evaluate the programs, and what's the process to decide on those good ideas that were mentioned? So I love some of the things that Alan mentioned. The important thing is that we do need to tighten up the processes in terms of the boards, the councils, the accountability. It's not enough to just have people who have good ideas saying, here's an idea, let's try this. We need to have some accountability. We need to formalize the processes so that people are being responsive and following through on researching all of these good ideas, compiling the information, presenting it, facilitating the interaction between the listeners and the decision makers. And it should definitely not be one person or one entity making a decision about programming.
Thank you.
Did you say we have follow-up or not in this section?
Yeah, actually, well, the way that it's structured, but you wanted to say something else on
Yes.
this regard? Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of these people. I really want to thank Alan. I totally agree with everything he said, and I'm glad he said it, so I'm not going to have to repeat it. I did want to point out, I wanted to thank you. This lady in the middle here, Renee, she is the National Election Supervisor, and she pulled us out of a catastrophe and is making this election happening. And this is something I'll say, and I'll repeat it later. Please vote. We have to reach quorum. We need 10% of our membership. That comes to about 1,400 or 1,500 people have to vote. Otherwise, we're in the drink. We're not going to have a successful election. So please vote, whoever you vote for. Just vote, send in the electronic ballot or the paper ballot. But on the thing with how we pick the programs, I just spent about an hour talking with the general manager, and he's way ahead of it. What the board did in the last 3 years, with great effort, was got a new general manager who's a professional, a new program director who's a professional, and we even got a new executive director for the whole foundation who's also a radio professional. And in the radio profession, it's not a question of what I think of or what I'm interested in, or what I think would work. It's a question of market analysis, reality. What does the public want? It's not a mystery. Surveys are being done. It's talked about in all kinds of magazines. We know what we can do to get more audience, what kind of shows we have to put out, and how we have to approach it. It isn't a question of doing the right thing. It's a question of doing the popular thing. And when you present it, you have to get audience. You could be 100% right about everything, and nobody's listening. It doesn't do anything. You have to get people to listen, get them into the tent, then you can make your pitch. So we have to get audience. And in terms of what we're doing, there's no question we've been on the right side of most issues, except like Alan said, if we ignore what we consider as the wrong side, we're giving them the full arena to defend themselves. We have to have everybody in the tent.
Okay, I'm not sure where the right and wrong parts come from, but I would say I think it's wonderful to have hired quality, professional, qualified people in these roles, and obviously their input and the market research is a huge factor. It just shouldn't be the only factor. We definitely need to hear the voice of the community, and that's why, for example, the program council, which is one of the topics that we're going to discuss later, I think would be a valuable addition to the conversation about programming. It can't be. We already have a country that in the past has said, okay, we elected these officials, now we can all go to brunch while our elected officials run our country, and we can trust them because they're the professionals, they're qualified, and they're doing it. And that model doesn't work anymore. So we now need to start to create a culture where citizens are engaged and activated. So if we want KPFK to be a listener-owned, a listener-run organization, then that means that they're involved in those decision-making processes as well.
The listenership is not participating. We are so low with only 1,400 members in a signal area of 23 million people. So there is no listenership. It's too low.
Yeah. We
need more listeners. So theoretically, again, the listeners will come in and say, please do something like, that show about auctions. What did you find in the attic? Or, put on Wait, Don't Tell Me, or follow this or follow that, or do something about this group or that group. People have pet peeves. People have hobbies. But we need to get the general public in that affects everybody, despite their ethnicity, despite their upbringing, despite their income. We need to have audience.
Yes, I think that's a different topic. Yeah.
Okay.
Moving,
the PNB already passed a motion of 15 things or 10 things to look at to evaluate programming. Part of it is popularity, part of it is income, part of it is a mission statement.
Thank you. Actually, I think this next question, which just so happens to be yours, is is on this topic, and it is question number 5. What can be done to increase listenership among KPFK's and Pacifica's audiences? How will you ensure KPFK continues to grow and change in order to meet the ever-changing needs of the community? Think about strategies for identifying and engaging underserved communities.
Right,
You have
sure.
1 minute.
Like Alan said, it's the listener. It's not the programmer. I found out that the listeners to this program, if you're watching this, you clicked on your laptop or on your phone or on your tablet to watch this program. You're not sitting at home watching 60 Minutes and flipped the channel and saw this. This show is not on cable TV. It's going to be at demand off of a website. So I found that out about the audience. We have to pay attention to the listener. What is the listener interested in? And the programming has to be compelling. It's not okay to just have somebody talk and, give out platitudes or describe problems. We have to be, and people are interested, they have problems, they want solutions, not just how terrible everything is. We need people coming on to programming with solutions. But again, like I say, my philosophy about what the audience needs is not important. What's important is what does the audience want, and we have to find out.
Thank you. Alan Beek?
There have been some questions on the set of questions that might be asked us about the structure of Pacifica and its formal structure. We face a really difficult problem. A bunch of valuable radio licenses worth millions of dollars in the hands of a listener-supported station is a little bit like a little child carrying around a $1,000 bill. Anybody will come along and offer to help him carry that load. And there are people, it happens about every 10 years, a bunch of pirates work their way into control of Pacifica, and they try to take it over and take some of those licenses for themselves. We've had to recover from those attacks twice now. We are still recovering because the latest one tried to get control of the licenses by making Pacifica go bankrupt, and they very nearly have succeeded, and we still have to work to keep from going bankrupt. But it's a structural problem, and how you manage to arrange an organization so it can be managed by people who won't be corrupt is a real challenge to which so far has been no secret answer found. We just have to work on it. Now, go ahead.
Thank you. Tyan?
Okay, so to increase listenership among KPFK and Pacifica's audiences, I believe that we need to modify our engagement with the audiences to match the current culture. And this is not based on market research. This is just my own personal opinion and hunch. But I kind of stopped listening to the radio because I started listening to podcasts or YouTube. And when I get in my car, my phone automatically connects to the radio, and I can very quickly pull up any news program that I've bookmarked that I wanted to listen to, or any report that I was interested in. And I think that's more commonly what's happening. That's just my hunch between my friends and my organizers. My organizer activist friends, we're following our issues and we're paying attention to the things that we choose to pay attention to. So I think that KPFK has to respond to that and modify their interaction with the public to include that component much more. I think that we need to maybe have a designated social media person, a hired person, a much more intentional focus on expanding that interaction. And I personally will be sharing all of our different platforms on my social media platforms, and so will my friends. That'll be my personal contribution to expanding the listenership.
Thank you.
Can we go another round
Alan,
on that?
yeah, you actually have another minute.
Yes, that's correct. Currently, our management is working on increasing the podcasts. and KPFA and KPFK and to do it at all the stations and to get into the digital universe. We've made some steps there and not that effectively. So we need to do better. That's true. But if you go to Southern California radio broadcasting on the internet, just Google that phrase, you'll get a website that'll tell you that according to the statistics, 90% of the public listens to radio. Podcast is about 4 to 10%. It's growing, but it doesn't compete yet with radio because radio is completely passive. You just put on a station and they decide what you're going to listen to and so forth. So it's not to be abandoned. Not everybody is just listening to smartphones, but we have to chase after that audience and get there. And I can assure you absolutely that at KPFK, our management is working very diligently to establish that.
Thank you. So moving on to the next question. This goes to Alan Beek, and the question is, how can we make KPFK thrive financially? Think about diversifying funding and moving away from relying primarily on fund drives. Propose alternative fundraising ideas/models. Think about a strategy and timeline for
at the present time, fortunately, we have a new management which is being very imaginative and trying a lot of different experiments in the way of raising money. And they've thought of some pretty unique and interesting ideas. It's my personal opinion that we're going to get the most results if we get the listeners all talking together with us and thinking of us as their family, and we have a big family discussion, and they feel that KPFK is their station and is their home. I think that way we will get money from them, and I think we will appeal to the people who approve of our product. In having the station board election, which we are doing now, there is a problem that hasn't been solved yet. A lot of people get elected that say they want to be on the board, but when they get there, they don't do anything. They don't work on any of the committees. We have had committees formed that simply die because no board member gets on them. Well, that's something we've got to work on. At the moment, we're doing pretty well on finance, but we're hindered by the fact that our accounting is still in such chaos from what has happened to it in the past years that we can't make a lot of very intelligent financial decisions. I think the same is true of other committees of KPFK. We have a committee that's proper function is to propose amendments to the bylaws to make us a more efficient corporation. Do they do that? No, they haven't proposed any amendments. Instead, they take it on themselves to censor the facts, the votes that get to the local station board for action. And they will just censor things. We sent a vote from the Finance Committee for a proposal to raise more money. This committee censored it, said, no, that can't go to the station board to consider. That's the kind of thing we have to overcome, be more efficient in our operation and less foolish.
Thank you. Tyan?
Sorry, can you remind me what question was?
Let's see. How can we make KPFK thrive financially?
So I think the combination of improved programming plus coming into the current environment for fundraising can help. And here's what I mean. A lot of the current media that I personally follow, they have their own YouTube channel. They have a channel on Patreon where their supporters directly fund their programming. Jimmy Dore is one of them. He's a KPFK. His program goes on KPFK, but he also has his own program on YouTube, and he has his own Patreon account. There are other platforms that are developing. And I think as we move forward, more and more collectively in society, our consciousness is raising that citizens are not as excited about advertisers. They don't want to have to go through a middleman or a third person. They want to give directly to the programming that they support. So I think that we could create some sort of hybrid in conjunction with other things that we're already doing and already working on. And, but this could be another addition, is that we could have some Patreon type platforms. And with the combination of improved programming and the listenership following their programs that they like and that they're committed to, that can be an avenue to fundraise. Is to, here's a fundraising place where you can just give directly to this person, this program that you support, and this is a fundraiser for KPFK. So that's kind of what I would like to explore.
Thank you. Ken, Aaron?
Oh, hello. Okay, so we're talking about fundraising. Well, if anybody out there has any resources or assets, you know that the thing you want to do is distribute them. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. So you have some real estate and some stocks and some bonds, and maybe you have some collection of jewelry or gold. You distribute your assets, and you should do the same thing with your sources of income. You have a job, but then maybe you run a little business on the side, or your wife works. You distribute your sources of income. So the station, our station right now is too dependent on donations from listeners, okay? Because we lost a grant we had from the federal government, which totaled about $2 or $3 million across the 5 stations. And we're working to get that back by remedying the absence of financial audits and some other requirements that have to be met. But we're working on it. We're recovering, as Alan pointed out, from a vicious attack to try to destroy the whole network. But we have to get back to the government money. We have to increase the listenership. If we had 10 times the listeners, we could have less fund drives and make more money. It's very simple. We need more people listening to the shows to bear we should be distributing the work we do to a larger audience. And then maybe there's other sources of income. We run events, and we're doing good events now. We can do that. We can have auctions. We can collaborate with other nonprofits to do events. And we can collaborate with nonprofits on radio production, too. So there's alternative sources of incomes. The Patreon idea is very good. Right now, Patreon's running into some trouble. You can find out about it by going on YouTube and just type in Patreon in trouble. And those sharing community type things are effective, but sometimes they run into trouble. And a lot of our programmers are doing that, and donations are going right to the programmers, and they're not coming to the station. So in certain cases, that can be a problem, too. But, the main thing with the income is increase the audience and diversify your funding sources. Last thing, as an idea, I'm not pushing this. There's 100 things you could do. If we had tiered access to our archives, you pay a larger membership fee, you get a better, faster, deeper access to our archive radio shows. That's a way to increase money.
Thank you. Alan, do you want to add?
Our bylaws charge us with finding and developing and encouraging amateur artists, musicians, performers of various types who don't have a venue yet. Part of our job should be to go look for those people and find them and encourage them and provide them with a spot. It doesn't do any good to appoint a committee and say, your job is to develop the amateurs. It isn't going to work, because if the committee members aren't interested, they aren't going to do anything. But if you have one person who is fired up on that subject, he's going to go ahead and work at it. He's going to go around and visit the high schools and the middle schools and find the budding artists and musicians, and he's going to develop them. So that it's a question of finding the right people and the enthusiastic people to get the job done. You can't do it just by appointing a committee.
Thank you. So let's move on to the next question, and this goes to Tyan, and it is number 8. The vast majority of programming on KPFK is produced by unpaid staff. What are the pros and cons of this? How can this structure be improved?
So I think that I'm in favor of this format, and I think mostly there are a lot of pros. I like that our programming is representative of our community, and people I'm proud of the Spanish language programming that KPFK has. I liked what Ken said about increasing some Asian language programming. And I think that that's what you get when you have the format that we have. There are some concerns. The fact that there's a mixture of unpaid and paid staff, I think sometimes there can be some, it creates a bit of friction or opposition between, there's some dynamics about their issues with management or pay and opportunities between the two different groups. So I'm not involved enough yet to know what those problems are or what the remedies to those problems are, but I would definitely work to protect the opportunities for our community to have representation on the radio. So mostly I like it.
Thank you. Aaron? Ken, Aaron?
Ken. Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm used to that.
It's like two first names.
That's fine. Yeah. No, before I was born, I demanded that my parents gave me a real first name because I wound up with one anyhow. All right. Anyhow, so we're talking about paid or unpaid programmers. Okay. This is like the Hatfields and the McCoys in Pacifica. It's been a big flap up in the Berkeley station. They have a union and they have an unpaid staff union. They have two unions. And they argue, and these people are the good people, and those people are the professionals, and these people aren't, and so forth and so on. And we've had a history at our station of being successful with unpaid programmers. And then, I don't remember, it was, like 8 years ago, a certain general manager put in what they call strip programming, the same programming 5 days a week at the same hour. And that's the traditional thing in radio. And most radio professionals say you will never get any substantial audience unless you do strip programming horizontally because people want to get a habit and listen to the same thing. And if you're going to do strip programming, you're going to wind up paying people because you can't expect them to come in every day or put in 4 hours for making a program for every day of the week and not get paid unless they're, millionaires or something, or they're on an endowment or something. I don't know. Occasionally you'd get that. So there's arguments for both sides of it. And as you suggest, we may have to go to a new model that's not that where we can have unpaid programmers, but they're getting supported by GoFundMe or Patreon or some other function. A new model for it. The key thing is not the programmer, it's the audience. The programming has to be compelling. I can't turn it off. Turn this off. I'm listening to something else. Don't interrupt me. I'm listening. It has to be compelling. You have to capture the audience, whether it's strip programming or standalone unpaid programming. That's what's important.
Thank you. Alan?
Well, of course, my number one issue is listen to the listeners. They'll tell you what they like and what they don't like and what you should do. And that's the greatest source of information and help. But I do think that we should put some time into what I would call civilized debate, in which we get the two speakers to write out what they're going to say and then exchange those scripts so each sees what's coming at him. And then he rewrites his debate to leave out the things that aren't doing him any good and to verify the facts that seem to be in question. And then they exchange the papers again, and they continue that until they're both satisfied that they're doing the best job they can with their case and the best that can be done against what's going to be thrown at them. And then they record the programs, and it becomes really an education for the audience, not a show like seeing a hockey match where somebody wins and somebody loses. It's entertainment and it's information both. And I think we should go and make some experiments for that kind of informed debate.
Thank you. Tyan?
I think the topic was pretty well covered, so I would love to just snatch a few seconds of this time to mention the slate that I'm running on, which is the Grassroots Community Radio Coalition, and the website is gcrc.org. SoCal.org. And we didn't have the funding to send out a mailer, so we are a little group of 4 that are not on the mailer that you might have received. And we also recommend Bella DeSoto and Doug Barnett also in our slate. So I just wanted to mention that. I meant to mention it in my intro. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the next question, and this goes to Ken Aaron. Yeah, I got it right this time. This is question number 5. Question number 4. Please describe KPFK's target audience. Is KPFK programming representative of the needs of listeners and the listening area? Please consider demographics, age, race, and ethnicity.
What was the last part?
Oh, sorry. Please consider demographics, age, race, and
yes.
ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, and political spectrum. Consider strategies for communicating with listeners to get their feedback. You have a
Okay,
minute.
I thought I was going to give a kind of an innocuous answer to this, but also our slate. I have to take a moment here to say everything Alan said is excellent. In fact, that's a good name for the program, Informed Debate. I like that. That's a great idea. Let's get the dross out of the way by going back and forth with the key speaking points. Then we get down to the really interesting parts of the disagreement. But in any event, the basic definition of a Pacifica audience is curiosity and responsibility, rather than being a spectator or a hedonist. In other words, it's not the kind of audience that just wants to, for most of our programming, that wants to sit there and listen to Rolling Stones doing Sympathy for the Devil or something like that, or just Queen concerts, which I listen to all the time. You know, that's where I get hedonistic. But the basic fact when I'm listening to Pacifica is curiosity, something I don't know that's interesting, and responsibility, something I should know, and everybody should know. That's our major buttons. We do have hedonistic shows. We have the Reggae Central. We have Rhapsody in Black. That's pure enjoyment. There's no politics. There's no, why don't you go out and form 3 doo-wop groups? Nothing like that. So that's part of life, though. This part of life is receiving sensation. It's usually considered to be a reward. But you can't live just going for rewards. So Pacifica provides content that satisfies your curiosity and bolsters your responsibility. That's our keynote.
Thank you. Alan? Beek?
Well, I think the one thing that people find is missing is our outreach to minority communities or to the young people. And I think that just is a question of going to them. We need to have somebody who's going around to the high schools and talking to them, talking to the program directors and the athletic directors. Do you have any budding students here that really should get exposure? We need somebody who will do that. Now, is there anybody running for the station board who's going to take that on? I think each candidate should be running for this job for a reason. There are a lot of people on that board right now that I can't figure out why they ever wanted to get on the board, because they aren't doing anything. They don't seem to care about going anything but going to the meetings. I think we need people with an objective, and you shouldn't vote for somebody who isn't there for some purpose.
Thank you. Tyan?
I think the KPFK target audience is the local community. This is our local Los Angeles radio station, and it should speak to what's happening in our community. Los Angeles is a huge city, and when I moved here, KPFK made it feel smaller. It made me feel like I understood the different pockets of groups of people that lived in Los Angeles, and not only through the programming, but through the events that the programs would promote or be a part of. And do I think it is currently representative of our demographic? Not as much. It's heavy on the fund drives. It's heavy on, I don't remember the name of the program, but there's a certain type of a program that I hear regularly, and then there are other programs that I would love to hear more, but I could just barely catch it if I'm lucky. Maybe it's on like once a week or at some obscure time, like late at night. So no, I don't think the programming right now represents the Los Angeles community in a balanced way, and I wish that it did.
Thank you. Ken, do you want to add something?
Yeah. Is this the second go around the same
This
question?
is the second go
Okay,
around.
yeah. You know, the demographics of LA, we are not bound by God or the federal or state government to equal out the demographics of Los Angeles. Our actual broadcast range is from San Diego to Santa Barbara, and it goes to Riverside. It's a large area. And if you want to look at the demographics, fine. But you don't have to say, well, I've got to do, I got so many Ashkenazi Jews, I got so many people from Peru, I got so many people from Iceland, I've got to spend that much of time on it. It's not, that's silly. We're all people. These are all human beings. The program is directed towards human beings. And if one man suffers, no matter what his demographic identification is, or his ethnic, or his race, his religion, anything, if one man, woman, or child is in need of information being distributed to the public, it doesn't matter what sector he's in. So we're individuals. There's a planet full of individuals who have, because of politics or choice, put themselves into different kinds of groups, or they're born into different kinds of groups. But basically, it's all human beings. So that's where we should really be designing it. However, just to get going, to get a foothold on this, we shouldn't be abandoning significant elements like the Asians, ASIANS, the Asians, Koreans, Chinese, Japanese, South Koreans, Vietnamese. We just don't cover it. And we really don't cover South America. I don't know what the Spanish language programs are covering, but I haven't heard any news about, you know, now Venezuela's in the news a lot. But I don't hear anything about Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, Patagonia, no, Chile. Did you ever hear about Chile? No. Nothing. Panama, no news. And so it's just when it gets into the political news on the right or the left, and it's hot news because it's communist or it's capitalist or something like that for the ideologues who are political activists. But there's there's areas we're not covering news because we're sitting on these hot political buttons and we're ignoring major issues that affect everybody, like the environment.
Thank you. So we have one more question, and this is for Alan. And it is, it is number...
There are a lot of things we should try, and if we have the listeners responding to us all the time, constantly, we'll get instant feedback on whether the things we're trying are a success. For example, a professional comedian has offered to help us with trying to make the fundraising fun. Just have write it into the program that this guy is going to come in and make a lot of nasty remarks and want your money. Well, if that's done properly, it can be entertaining so that the fund drives won't be such misery for everybody. I think we should just listen to our listeners and we'll know what to do right.
Thank you. So I think I'm going to open it up to your closing statements. So you'll each get 1 minute to close.
1 minute?
Yes, 1 minute. This is the clock.
It's not fair.
Ticking down. All right. We'll start with Tyan.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the time that you took to listen to our debate. And I just want to talk a little more about my slate. I want to say that I know people that are running on both slates, and I've organized with different individuals, and so I've seen great work come out of a lot of individuals that are running. So it's exciting to see so many people who love KPFK, and I feel like we broadly agree that this radio station is important. It's important to protect this radio station, protect the airwaves, and not let it be sabotaged or ruined, and that's exciting to see. I think the difference, the reason I got involved with the grassroots slate, first, my friend Singy is on that slate, and she's part of the grassroots community, I would say. She's already on the board. But she invited me to join some of the meetings of the slate. And what I really like about this group of people is that they ask questions. They're willing to voice their questions and concerns. They're willing to say them loudly and ask for answers and ask for clarity. And they are fighting for Spanish language programming to be able to stay on the airwaves. So I think I tend to lean towards that. I'm in favor. I think that's the democratic process. So I'm in favor of questions, scrutiny, accountability, and a fair process, a process that protects access for everyone. So I also want to encourage you to vote. And I want to remind you that it's like a ranked choice voting type of a vote. So if you like our slate, please vote for us towards the top to make sure that we have a good shot, since we didn't get to send those mailers out. But visit our website to learn more about Michael Novick, Reza, me, Jeff, and we also support Bella DeSoto, and we also support Doug Barnett.
Thank you. Alan Beek, your closing statement?
Well, we don't like to be known as the progressive station. We're always on one side of things. We criticize other radio stations because they're one-sided. But our job, our duty, is to present both sides, to present things balanced. Well, we try to make up for all the conservative stuff that's out there by presenting a lot of progressive stuff. The answer to that is to have those civilized debates where we present the other side, but we present the answers right along with it, so that the people can see a balanced agenda, and yet they can still hear us being fair and presenting all the information that's out there.
Thank you. Ken Aaron, your closing statement?
Let's get that close up. Okay, great. So here's the story. I know I've been acting very noisy and a little belligerent or a little wild. It's part of my general nature. I won't deny that. But I'm trying to be interesting because I have respect for you spending the time to watch this. Alan and I want to thank Alan for presenting all the solid ideas that I totally agree with. And, you know, at least he's been here as the stable person. And we're both on the same slate, and it's candidateslate.org. Candidateslate.org. You'll see all our gorgeous faces. You can read our statements and our bios, and then you can use that as a thing to fill out your ballot. Please vote. And I just got a brilliant idea while I was sitting here. Download this video, cut it up, turn it into a mockery, do anything you want with it, put it on your YouTube channel, and send it to all your friends and tell them to vote in the KPFK election. Use this video, edit it, turn it upside down, put us on camels, whatever you want to do. You have my permission, and get it to go viral. We need the votes. We have to make quorum. That's the most important thing. Look at our slate, look at the other slate, vote for whoever you think will be the best advantage for the station. I don't care what their political viewpoint is. We want people who will make the station work.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This closes the second KPFK local station board debate, and I was joined by Tyan Schesser, Ken Aaron, and Alan Beek. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Renee, for everything you've done.
No problem.